Prepare to journey into one of the darkest chapters of modern American history. A tale that transfixed a nation, shattered the comfort of daily routine, and left an indelible mark on communities across thousands of miles. As chaos gripped streets from the heart of the nation's capital to quiet towns stretched along highways, terror spun its web, a reminder that some chapters in our history are defined not just by the horror of violence, but also by the relentless, haunting questions it leaves behind. Throughout history, cases of mass shootings have frightened the public and dominated headlines. These incidents typically unfold in a single day at one location, often leaving numerous casualties in their wake. Yet, this particular story stands apart. Two perpetrators crisscrossed the nation, seizing opportunities to open fire at random, leaving fear and uncertainty in every region they touched. In October 2002, a wave of shootings shook the Northern Virginia, Southern Maryland, and Washington, D.C. metropolitan areas. What set this spree apart was not just its brutality, but the expansive reach of the attacks and their seemingly arbitrary selection of victims. Authorities found little to link the victims, yet a complex backstory and a sinister motive ultimately emerged, fueling the terror that swept the region. Who exactly were John Allen Mohammed and Lee Boyd Malibu? How did their trail of violence spread so far, and how did they manage to elude law enforcement for so long? What drove them to commit such horrific acts? Welcome to this episode of Land of History. The names John Allen Mohammed and Lee Boyd Malibu soon became infamous nationwide after their arrest for a shooting rampage that captured global attention. However, many were unaware that their deadly journey began earlier in the year. Details only revealed following their arrest and the charges for killing 10 and injuring 3 in Washington, D.C. John Allen Mohammed, initially named John Allen Williams, was born December 31, 1960, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. In August 1978, he joined the Louisiana Army National Guard as a combat engineer, moving to active Army duty in November 1985, and receiving training as a mechanic, truck driver, and specialized metalworker. He changed his name in 2001 after joining the Nation of Islam in 1987 and became a follower of Louis Farrakhan, known for his divisive rhetoric. Mohammed even provided security during the so-called Million Man March. Raised by his maternal grandfather and an aunt after his mother died of cancer and his father abandoned him, Mohammed's early life was marked by loss and instability. He served in the military, went through 2 divorces, and his second wife, Mildred Mohammed, successfully obtained a restraining order after alleging abuse. Mohammed faced federal charges for possessing a weapon in violation of that restraining order. He had 3 children with his ex-wife, but lost custody after a divorce and later abducted them, taking them to Antigua while wanted for credit card and immigration fraud. During this period, Mohammed developed a close bond with Lee Boyd Malvo, a Jamaican youth who would become his accomplice. Also known as John Lee Malvo, he lived with Mohammed in Tacoma, Washington, for about a year leading up to the killing spree. Their first murder occurred on February 16, 2002, when 21-year-old Kenya Cook was shot in East Tacoma. Cook, the aunt of Mohammed's ex-wife, was shot by Malvo, who later confessed at Mohammed's urging. In 2004, Washington state chose not to prosecute Malvo for her murder, arguing that the crime lacked aggravating factors that would extend his sentence beyond those already issued in Virginia. Their deadly path next led to Tucson, Arizona, on March 19, 2002. There, Jerry Taylor, 60, was killed on a golf course. Malvo admitted responsibility when questioned by Tucson police in October 2006, receiving immunity from prosecution. On August 1, 2002, in Hammond, Louisiana, Malvo shot John Gaeta, 58, in the neck with a .22 caliber gun. Gaeta survived despite his grave injuries and later received an apology letter from Malvo in 2010. On September 5, 2002, Malvo shot restaurateur Paul LaRufa 5 times outside his eatery in Clinton, Maryland. Remarkably, LaRufa survived and later testified in Mohammed's Virginia resentencing, which resulted in a possibility of parole. On September 14, 2002, 22-year-old Rupinder Binny Oberoi was wounded outside a Silver Spring, Maryland, liquor store. As noted by CNN, the circumstances, eyewitness accounts, and location linked this incident to the shooters, though ballistic evidence did not initially connect the dots. By November 2002, Montgomery County Police Captain Nancy Dem confirmed that Oberoy's case was officially tied to the sniper shootings. On September 15, 2002, Mohammed Rashid survived being shot at a Brandywine, Maryland, liquor store, later identifying Malvo as the attacker in court. On September 21, 2002, Milligan Valdemariam, 41, was fatally shot outside an Atlanta liquor store, with ballistic analysis tying a .22 caliber pistol to this incident and the Maryland shootings, though Georgia never pursued charges. That same day, in Montgomery, Alabama, liquor store owner Claudine Parker was killed and clerk Kelly Adams was seriously wounded. Ballistics connected the crime to the Bushmaster .223 rifle used in later shootings, with eyewitness accounts linking Mohammed and Malvo to the scene. After fingerprints found matched Malvo's U.S. immigration card, capital murder charges were filed against them, though Alabama chose not to prosecute because Virginia sought the death penalty. On September 23, 2002, Hong M. Ballinger, 45, was killed outside a Baton Rouge beauty salon. Investigators charged both men with capital murder and armed robbery after confirming the Bushmaster .223 rifle was used. Authorities in Louisiana opted not to bring charges against Mohammed or Malvo, prioritizing the legal proceedings pending in Virginia. Just 3 days afterward, on September 26, 2002, Wright Williams Jr. suffered gunshot wounds at his grocery store in Baton Rouge, yet no charges followed for that crime either. Prosecutors, however, later used the assault as evidence of similar criminal conduct during Mohammed's trial. After this, Mohammed and Malvo returned to the D.C. metropolitan area. On October 2, 2002, a shot shattered a window at Michael's craft store in Aspen Hill, Maryland, without causing injury. Later the same day, 55-year-old James D. Martin, employed by the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, lost his life in a grocery store parking lot in Wheaton, Maryland. The next day, October 3rd, the violence escalated. 39-year-old landscaper James L. Buchanan was killed performing his job near Rockville, Maryland. That same afternoon in Montgomery County, 54-year-old taxi driver Primkamir Walachar was killed at a gas station, and shortly thereafter, 34-year-old Sarah Ramos of Silver Spring, Maryland, was murdered at a post office adjacent to the Leisure World Shopping Center. Witnesses described a white van or truck fleeing after one attack, diverting police resources toward an incorrect lead. The carnage did not stop. Also on October 3rd, 25-year-old Lori and Louis Rivera from Silver Spring was shot and killed at a gas station in Kensington, Maryland. Later, 72-year-old Pascal Charlotte was shot while walking on Georgia Avenue, succumbing to his injuries an hour after arriving at the hospital. After this intense burst of violence, Mohammed and Malvo paused for the remainder of October 3rd. On October 4th, they ambushed 43-year-old Caroline Sewell in a Michael's parking lot in Fredericksburg, Virginia, as she loaded her vehicle. She survived, leaving the hospital 10 days later. 4 days later, on October 7th, 13-year-old Ian Brown was shot outside Benjamin Tasker Middle School in Bowie, Maryland. Thankfully, the boy survived and eventually testified in court. On October 9th, a tarot card featuring the phrase, "Call me God," was discovered at the scene, a cryptic message that intensified public fear. Not long after the discovery, another murder occurred the same day. 53-year-old Dean Harold Myers of Gaithersburg, Maryland, was shot at a gas station in Manassas, Virginia. Eyewitness descriptions once again pointed police towards a white minivan, but the stop yielded no arrests. On October 11th, 53-year-old Kenneth Bridges from Philadelphia was killed at an Exxon station near Fredericksburg, Virginia. With more witnesses reporting sightings of a white van with a ladder rack, authorities established roadblocks in search of a Chevy Astro-type vehicle. On October 14th, 47-year-old Linda Franklin of Arlington, Virginia, was killed in the Falls Church Home Depot parking lot. The onslaught continued on October 19th, when 37-year-old Jeffrey Hopper was shot outside a Ponderosa Steakhouse in Ashland, Virginia. He survived, and doctors extracted the bullet 2 days later, confirming it was fired from the same weapon used in the previous attacks. A brief lull followed before Mohammed and Malvo resumed their spree. On October 22nd, 35-year-old bus driver Conrad Johnson of Oxon Hill, Maryland, was shot while boarding his commuter bus in Aspen Hill, later dying in a Bethesda hospital. Ultimately, on October 24, 2002, Authorities found Mohammed and Malvo asleep in a blue 1990 Chevy Caprice at a Frederick County, Maryland rest stop and apprehended them. Mohammed had bought the vehicle, previously used as a police cruiser, in New Jersey on September 11, 2002. During interrogation, Mohammed expressed his admiration for Osama bin Laden and acknowledged his approval of the September 11, 2001, attacks. Malvo informed investigators that Mohammed's ultimate aim was to earn money and establish a terrorist training camp in Canada for children. The murders, it seemed, were part of a broader scheme to eventually kill Mohammed's ex-wife Mildred and regain custody of his children, with the shootings serving as a diversion. Prosecutors further stated that the shootings were part of an extortion attempt for $10 million from regional governments. According to the Seattle Times, prosecutors presented over 130 witnesses and more than 400 pieces of evidence to establish Mohammed's leadership and direction over Malvo. Among the most damning items were a rifle from Mohammed's trunk, linked by ballistics to 8 D.C. area murders and 2 others out of state. Investigators discovered the car had been altered to allow a shooter to fire from the trunk, and inside was a laptop computer marked with icons mapping each site of the attacks. Eyewitnesses placed Mohammed in proximity to several crime scenes, and a recording of a police hotline call was presented in which a man, whose voice police identified as Mohammed's, demanded payment to stop the killings. Both suspects were arraigned, Malvo as an adult. John Allen Mohammed received the death penalty. During his own trial, Malvo recanted earlier claims of sole responsibility, admitting he had lied to protect Mohammed, believing his youthful age would spare him execution. Malvo testified in detail about the shootings and was ultimately sentenced to multiple life terms without parole in Maryland and Virginia. At that period in Virginia, defendants convicted of capital murder had the right to choose their method of execution, either lethal injection or electrocution. Since Mohammed declined to make a choice, the law defaulted to lethal injection. He accepted an offer to select a final meal, choosing chicken with red sauce and cake. On November 10, 2009, John Allen Mohammed was executed. Malvo's legal journey, however, continued to unfold. On May 26, 2017, a federal judge overturned 2 of Malvo's life sentences in Virginia, though his other convictions and life sentences from Maryland remained intact. Subsequently, on June 21, 2018, a federal appeals court vacated Malvo's 4 life sentences in Virginia without parole, citing a 2012 Supreme Court ruling that deemed mandatory life sentences without parole unconstitutional for juveniles. Virginia challenged this ruling. By March 18, 2019, the Virginia Supreme Court re-evaluated Malvo's case. In February 2020, his life sentences without parole in Virginia were commuted to life with the possibility of parole after legislative reforms regarding juvenile sentences. Maryland's life sentence without parole, however, remained unaffected. Malvo became eligible for parole in 2022 but was denied. After filing an appeal on August 26, 2022, a Maryland appeals court ordered Malvo to be resentenced. Meanwhile, on August 30, 2022, the Virginia Parole Board once again denied his parole request. Currently, Malvo is serving his sentences at Red Onion State Prison in Virginia. Notably, a judge remarked that Malvo's parole status in Virginia is pivotal, as it determines when his consecutive Maryland sentences might commence. Mohammed's horrifying motive for mass murder was to obscure the ongoing murder of his ex-wife in a bid to regain custody of his children. He dragged the juvenile Malvo along, who served as both accomplice and scapegoat should plans go awry. Monsters walk among us. Mass shootings, a grim facet of American history, come with both shared traits and stark differences, whether driven by political, racial, or deeply personal motives. Most mass shooters leave behind evidence of their motivations, such as manifestos or letters. Some operate with accomplices sharing their twisted beliefs, but the majority act alone. Let's now turn to one of the earlier cases in this grim chronicle. Who was Mark Essex? What personal experiences fueled his descent into racial hatred? What did his actions entail? Welcome to this episode of Land of History. Mark James Robert Essex was born August 12, 1949, in Emporia, Kansas, the second among 5 siblings born to Mark Henry and Nellie Essex. The family was religious, with his father employed as a foreman in a meat packing plant and his mother serving as a counselor for preschool children from disadvantaged backgrounds. As a child, Essex enjoyed Cub Scouts and played saxophone for his high school band. He loved hunting and fishing and, during his teens, entertained the idea of becoming a minister. Popular in high school, his only police encounter was in 1965, when he was stopped by an officer who assumed he was too young to drive due to his height of 5 feet 4 inches. An intriguing fact about Essex is that despite his later racial views, he dated both black and white girls during high school, once telling his mother that he saw little difference between races. He was an average student but excelled in technical subjects, graduating from Emporia High School in 1967. He enrolled for 1 semester at Emporia State University before securing work at the same meatpacking plant where his father was employed. Essex contemplated joining the Army but ultimately enlisted in the Navy on January 13, 1969, signing a 4-year contract to gain technical training for his envisioned civilian career. His first posting was Naval Air Station Imperial Beach, California. Family members say his Navy experience was positive overall. He received high marks at Naval Training Center and enrolled in training at the Navy Dental Center, becoming a dental technician by April 1969, specializing in endodontics and periodontics. He developed a close relationship with his white supervisor, Lieutenant Robert Hatcher. However, Essex soon encountered racist behavior. Working as a bartender at the enlisted men's club, the Jolly Rotor, he noticed certain rooms were off-limits to black sailors. In a letter to his mother, Essex expressed deep disappointment over racial relations within the Navy, unlike the harmonious atmosphere he recalled from Emporia. He had hoped that promotion would alleviate these issues, but harassment persisted, pushing him towards sedative use. Essex befriended Rodney Frank, a black sailor in aircraft maintenance who described himself as a militant. Frank introduced Essex to the writings of Black Panther Party co-founders Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. By summer 1970, Essex had become radicalized. In August 1970, he assaulted a white non-commissioned officer after overhearing a derogatory comment about black sailors. The two reached a compromise to avoid disciplinary sanctions. Nonetheless, Essex faced intensified harassment from white personnel for striking a senior-ranked white sailor. On October 19, 1970, Essex went UA, unauthorized absence, or AWOL, calling his mother from a bus station to say, "I'm coming home, I just need some time to think." Essex stayed in Emporia while absent without leave, AWOL, until November 16, 1970. During this time, he confided in his family about the discrimination he and others endured, revealing the roots of his growing anger. After roughly a month, his family convinced him to return to Imperial Beach. Before coming back, Essex met with Lieutenant Hatcher to explain his reasons for desertion. According to Hatcher's official notes, Essex stated, "I don't want to have anything more to do with the Navy. It wouldn't be fair, not to you or to the dental patients. The bad atmosphere would affect my work. The work is the only thing on this base I like." Essex agreed to plead guilty to desertion charges. At the court-martial, Hatcher defended Essex, highlighting his strong work ethic and attributing the desertion solely to persistent racial discrimination. The judge showed sympathy and sentenced Essex to 30 days of restriction on base and a $90 pay forfeiture, roughly $710 to $720 in today's dollars over 2 months. On February 11, 1971, Essex was given a general discharge for unsuitability, which angered him. He felt unfairly stigmatized, and the racial issues he faced went unaddressed. Following his discharge, Essex immersed himself deeper into Black Panther ideology, adopting the name Mata and embracing the extremist principles found in the 1968 book Black Rage. Returning home in April 1971, he purchased a Ruger .44 caliber semi-automatic carbine via mail order from a Montgomery ward in Emporia. He practiced marksmanship compulsively in rural areas and, in August, left without informing his parents, possibly heading to Louisiana to reconnect with his friend Rodney Frank. Between 1971 and 1972, Essex moved residences 4 times before settling in a modest 2-room apartment at 2619 Dryad Street, Central City, in early November 1972. There, he observed the poverty-stricken housing projects around him. On August 22, 1972, he applied to the federally funded Total Community Action (TCA) program and was accepted. He enrolled in a vending machine repair course, excelling and ranking at the top. Essex also took an African studies course, memorizing various African languages and dialects from his apartment. Later, hateful slogans in English, Swahili, and Zulu appeared scrawled on his apartment's walls and ceilings. Around this time, he purchased a Colt .38 caliber revolver and lived a solitary life while grappling with severe depression. Something happened then that hardened his hatred further. In September 1972, the New Orleans Police Department established the Felony Action Squad to combat violent crime. Superintendent Clarence Geruso authorized the squad to shoot to kill if threatened. In October, Essex visited his family in Emporia, appearing upbeat and enthusiastic, convincing his parents he had moved beyond his bitter Navy experiences. However, on November 16th, Essex learned that 2 black students from Southern University had been shot and killed by East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's deputies during a campus demonstration. Deeply disturbed, Essex resolved to fight what he saw as police oppression. He wrote his mother a letter. "Africa, this is it, Mom. It's even bigger than you and I, bigger than God. I have now decided that the white man is my enemy. I will fight to gain my manhood or die trying. Love, Jimmy." Using his childhood nickname. On December 27, 1972, Essex dined with a fellow student's family and later called his own family, deliberately speaking to each member individually. He showed no signs of distress during the calls. Essex then distributed most of his personal belongings to friends, acquaintances, and neighbors, giving the impression he planned to return to Emporia, though this was not his true intention. Essex penned a letter to WWL-TV, signing it, Mata. In it, he declared his plan to attack the New Orleans Police Department on December 31st, citing revenge for the killing of the 2 Southern University students during the civil rights protest. Around 10:55 p.m. on New Year's Eve 1972, armed with a Ruger .44 caliber carbine, a .38 caliber revolver, ammunition, a gas mask, wire cutters, lighter fluid, matches, and firecrackers packed in a green duffel bag, Essex parked his car and walked near Perdito Street, a block from the New Orleans Police Department headquarters. He concealed himself behind parked cars in the dimly lit lot across from the Central Police Jail and opened fire on 19-year-old cadet Bruce Weatherford as he reported for duty. Weatherford dove for cover instinctively. Another 19-year-old black cadet, Alfred Harrell, ran to assist him but was fatally shot once in the chest. The bullet passed through Harrell and ricocheted, striking Lieutenant Horace Perez in the ankle. Essex fled but was far from finished. On January 7, 1973, he resumed his rampage, earning the moniker New Orleans Sniper. He continued to shoot pedestrians and police, culminating in a standoff atop a building, where he barricaded himself. The response was massive, including deployment of a military helicopter, testament to the threat Essex posed amid growing casualties. Despite police attempts to negotiate, Essex made a desperate final charge, ending his life under a barrage of bullets. When the violence ceased, Essex had killed 9 people, including 5 police officers, and wounded 12 others, among them 5 additional officers. The fallen included Police Cadet Alfred Harrell, chest wound; Officer Edwin Hosley Sr., chest and stomach; Dr. Robert Stiegel, hotel guest, chest; Elizabeth Stiegel, hotel guest, head; Frank Schneider, hotel assistant manager, head; Walter Sherwood Collins, hotel general manager, back and stomach; Officer Philip Coleman, head; Officer Paul Arlen Frazigo, face; and Deputy Police Superintendent Louis Sergo, chest and back. Those wounded consisted of Lieutenant Horace Perez, ankle; Grocer Joseph Pernicoro, upper right shoulder; New Orleans Fireman Joseph Anderson, arm; Patrolman Charles Arnold, face; Officer Lawrence Arthur, side; Hotel Guest Robert Beamish, abdomen; Patrolman Michael Burrell, smoke inhalation, hand and back injuries from a fall; and New Orleans Fireman Thomas Calamari, arm. As we reflect on these dark chapters of history, what lessons can we draw about the roots of hatred and the consequences of ignoring warning signs? How can we, as a society, confront and prevent such tragedies from unfolding again? If this story moved you, challenged your perspective, or sparked your curiosity, please like and share this content to help spread awareness. Together, we can ignite conversations that matter and foster greater understanding, because knowing our history is the first step toward creating a safer future for all.